They thought it was just a mailbox. They were wrong. What came next made an entire department stop laughing. Marcus Turner kept his routines like he kept his tools, orderly, well-oiled, and with a stubborn pride that came from a life built by his own hands. On weekdays, he tended a small cattle herd on the edge of town. On Sundays, he cleaned the rust from the porch swing and set the mail on the kitchen table before his wife fixed the coffee. His mailbox was part of that rhythm, not a throwaway thing but a marker of home. Marcus had welded it himself years ago, bent tapered steel into a shape he liked, bolted it to a post he poured into concrete. He painted it a deep flat black and set a red flag that clicked loud enough to hear from the porch. Folks joked that his mailbox looked nicer than some houses on the next road over. Marcus didn't mind the jokes. It was his. The first hit came on a rainy Saturday. Marcus found the mailbox twisted against the fence, wood splintered. The red flag folded like it had been shocked into silence. He assumed a drunk driver. They happened on the county road. The sheriff's deputy who responded wrote a report, scratched his head and said, "Must be a tired driver. Mr. Turner, we'll put it down." Marcus took the small check the county offered, not much, and replaced the post. 2 months later it happened again. This time the mailbox bent backward, so the paint cracked and one hinge was ripped out. Marcus walked to the ditch and found scuff marks that curved oddly and a tread he recognized, the trim of a police cruiser's bumper. He flagged the sheriff's office down the phone and asked who'd patrolled the area that night. "Lots of units," they told him. He requested footage. "Cameras?" the deputy asked. Marcus had rigged a single-motion camera onto the porch after the second strike, a cheap thing, but it recorded in the night. He showed the clip. It was grainy, but the silhouette was unmistakable. A marked cruiser barreled into the mailbox and kept going. The deputy shrugged. "Probably an off-duty or mistaken run. We'll make a note." The third time it wasn't ambiguous. Marcus watched the footage, late into the night. The grain wobbling with motion, but the cruiser's lights, unmistakable under the street lamp. The car slowed, lurched, and the bumper met the post with a crunch that made Marcus's stomach turn the moment he heard it through the camera's tinny speakers. 2 officers inside chuckled, and the driver, a younger man with the posture of someone who thought the world owed him a favor, punched the gas. The cruiser rocketed away, the mailbox spinning like a broken toy. Marcus replayed the file until his eyes blurred. He drove down to the station the next morning with a hard little stack of photographs and the video on a thumb drive. "Look," he said to the man behind glass at the front desk, holding the thumb drive like evidence inordinately precious. "This is your cruiser." The clerk, polite, slid the dust from his keyboard. "Sir, we deal with a lot of reports. Leave it with dispatch. We'll..." "You'll what?" Marcus demanded, quieter than he meant to be. "You'll ignore it like the last 2 times? I paid for this box. I didn't bake it from luck. It's my property." They took the drive, labeled it, and offered the standard apology and the standard form. Marcus left with the same small, perfunctory assurance he'd been given before. No badge number on a return slip, no "we'll handle it" with conviction. Just paper. Nothing changed. Word spread because Marcus told anybody who would listen, his neighbor, the lady who ran the diner, the kid from the feed store who came over to fix the porch light. People came by sometimes to watch him fix his mailbox. Some covered it in clever little jokes, a sign that read, "Protected by stubbornness." But the joke shed a darker light. The camera, Marcus discovered, had been recording more than just wrenches and weather. It had captured the cruisers. It had captured the men who drove. Those cruisers laughing as they sent his mailbox into splinters. A week later, Marcus sat in the living room with his hands wrapped around a hot mug, the house smelling faintly of coffee and engine oil and the fading tang from the repertoire on his post. He'd been in tougher situations than this, in a country whose flag means different things to different people. But this felt different. This was purposeful humiliation, handed to him by the very men who swore to protect the town. It wasn't about property anymore. It was about being made small, publicly. That night he visited the hardware store. He measured, bought, and paid for materials. With the same deliberate care he'd used building the mailbox the first time. This one would not be pretty. It would be engineering disguised as tradition. Marcus dug a hole deeper than the county code required, 3 feet at least, and drove rebar into the earth like stakes in a promise. He rented a cement mixer, mixed one batch after another, and poured the post into concrete until it set like a short monument. Then, when the mortared concrete had cured, and the sun was making halos of dust against the fence, Marcus bolted a steel-wrapped post to the concrete base with industrial-grade bolts, welded a hockey puck of steel between the post and the mailbox mount to absorb impact, and bolstered the box with angle iron. Braces nestled inside the wood, so it would flex but not snap. He painted the whole thing in the same deep, flat black, because he knew appearances mattered to people. It had to look like a harmless mailbox on the roadside, not a gauntlet. He called in a friend who'd wired alarms and cameras for the oil fields and asked that his system be tuned to catch more than movement. Record license plates, capture infrared signature, give him time-stamped frames and the angle of approach. Marcus set the camera in a place that covered both the mailbox and the stretch of road leading to town. He kept the wiring tucked under a clever breadbox cover on the porch, rigged to a battery, and a small solar panel so it would run in the dark if the power failed. He did all of it with the meticulous hands of a man used to making things hold. Then he waited. For a week nothing happened. It was almost peaceful. The county road hummed as usual with the low murmur of farm trucks. A fox sometimes skittered across the shoulder at dusk. Marcus made his coffee and read the paper. He fixed a broken gate. He watched the camera feed on a cracked laptop screen, half expecting nothing and half expecting everything. The post at the diner teased him about being paranoid. "You're turning into a spy, Marcus," his neighbor laughed. Marcus only smiled. On the third late night, after the reinstall, when the moon was fat, and the air smelled of coming rain, Marcus heard the muted thrum of a cruiser. It was slow at first, a low idling sound, then faster. The lights that sliced through. The trees where the counties, red and blues, slashed, ghost-like across the fence posts. His fingers tightened on the mug. He watched him approach on the grainy infrared feed, a silhouette that moved with the confidence of a man who'd made mischief, of swerve and smash. Marcus felt something like cold resolve crawl up his spine. The cruiser turned toward his mailbox as if it were a target in a game. The driver left. The cruiser drifted a fraction to the right and then, like a predator, leapt. This time the mailbox did not yield. Something metal shrieked, rubber flung, crunch and spark. The cruiser's bumper snaked against the angle iron, but the reinforced post held. The impact sent a concussion through the chassis. Steam hissed from the radiator, and the driver stomped the gas only to hear a sound that made him curse and laugh. With the same suddenness, a sound of screw and bolt doing exactly what they were built to do. Hold. Headlights cut across Marcus's yard, and the cruiser came to a smoking halt. The officer he'd seen in multiple clips, the younger reckless man, Officer Jenkins, stumbled out, clutching at his forehead. He kicked the mailbox in, frustration, and hurt his foot. On a hidden plate Marcus had screwed into the post intentionally, to catch boot and not let the box budge. Jenkins' curse echoed down the road. He hammered the grill with his fist, then looked toward the porch where Marcus stood. Marcus walked out slowly, hands in his pockets, a simple silhouette in the orange glow. He did not shout, he did not run. He walked to the driver's window, leaned on the frame and said, in a voice that was both polite and final, "Evening, officer. Might want to check your patrol route." Jenkins sputtered with anger. "What did you do to this thing?" "You rigged it." He pointed wildly at the mailbox as if that made it monstrous. Marcus tapped the camera mount with the tip of his boot. "You backed into it twice in 1 month. I put a camera up. You do what you do. Now you have film. I built something that'll make sure it sticks around." From down the road, other cruisers began to arrive. Flashes and sirens in a clumsy chorus. The sheriff's SUV pulled up, and the man behind the wheel, grayer, heavier with the authority that comes from years of avoiding scandal, stepped out. Marcus caught the sheriff's eye and walked him through the archive, on his laptop with the smooth calm of a man presenting undeniable proof. When the sheriff scrolled and saw the same clips, Marcus had watched until he'd memorized them. The sheriff's jaw tightened in a small way that said everything. "You filmed this?" the sheriff asked. "Yes, all of it." "That's a serious accusation. We have to investigate." The sheriff's voice was clipped, procedural, but Marcus could see the calculus. Reputation, public optics, the fact the county would not want its officers in viral video clips. He watched the dynamic shift in real time. The swagger slowed. The sarcasm warmed into a careful civility. That night the cruiser was towed away. The word spread by morning. Marcus's mailbox remained upright, not triumphant, just solid. Neighbors came by with coffee and nods, and the diner ran his face on a printed local flyer like a folk hero. On the porch he sipped his coffee and watched the sunrise paint the fence rails gold. The mailbox glinted in the light like a small black promise. He had not sought revenge. He had only wanted respect. But sometimes the two looked the same. The road hummed on, but now, when cruisers passed, Marcus waved and they slowed. Marcus tipped his hat. Somewhere in town a story was being told about a mailbox that wouldn't break and the man who refused to let it. He did not know what the county would ultimately do. He only knew that the next time boots thundered toward his post, they'd meet the thing he had made. And the town, for a little while, would see the difference between a joke and a line that cannot be crossed. The next evening, the road outside Marcus's ranch was busier than usual. Word had traveled fast, not just through neighbors, but across town, into the sheriff's office, and even into the little online groups where deputies swapped jokes. The video Marcus handed over had been copied, reviewed, passed around. It was undeniable. The public outcry had started, quiet but sharp, and the department was scrambling. By dusk, Marcus heard the sound of engines again. 2 cruisers slowed near the property, headlights washing over the black. Mailbox that now stood like a stubborn little fortress. This time no one swerved. The car stopped, and from them stepped the sheriff himself, flanked by 2 senior officers. Mr. Turner, the sheriff called, tipping his hat. His voice carried the weight of someone who had spent the last 24 hours putting out fires. Political, legal, and personal. Mind if we talk? Marcus stepped down from the porch, wiping his hands on his jeans. Talk's free, he said. The sheriff motioned to the first cruiser, the one that had hit Marcus's mailbox hours before. Its bumper was gone, the radiator crushed, the damage expensive. We've reviewed the footage. Officer Jenkins was reckless, off duty at the time, using county property for a joyride. He's been suspended pending review. Marcus nodded slowly. It was not gloating. It was the acknowledgement of a truth long overdue. Jenkins stood nearby, no longer cocky. His head hung low, the weight of his badge suddenly heavy. Look, he started, voice breaking. I didn't think it mattered. It was just a mailbox. Marcus fixed him with a level look. It matters when it's mine. You don't get to laugh when you're supposed to protect. You don't get to break what other people build. For a long moment there was silence except for the hum of the cruiser's engine. The sheriff sighed. County will pay for all damages, and Jenkins will work that debt back on probation. Consider this official notice. He handed Marcus an envelope, thick with forms, restitution papers, and a letter signed by the county board. Marcus took it without a smile, but something in his shoulders loosened. The road felt a little different now, like the balance had shifted. As the sheriff and his men left, Jenkins lingered. He looked at Marcus once more, shame and something like respect warring on his face. Guess you taught me something tonight, he muttered. Marcus said nothing. He simply tapped the mailbox post with his knuckles, solid, unbroken, then turned back toward the porch. Morning came. The sky was painted gold as the sun climbed. The mailbox stood proud, shining from the night's dew. Marcus sat on the porch, coffee steaming in his hand. A single cruiser passed. Slow, careful. This time the officer inside raised a hand in quiet salute. Marcus tipped his hat, the faintest smile on his face. Some victories were small, but they were victories just the same.